Hello there, and welcome to the CP7 podcast. My name's Palm.
And I'm Andy.
And I'm José.
And together, we are Chrono Passion 7. Hello, and welcome to your favorite watch-related podcast. You're here with the boys from Chrono Passion 7. This is episode 33, all the threes. So we thought there's going to be three of us today. And today we have a very special guest. We have José Miranda from Isotope Watches. Welcome to the show, José.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
It's our pleasure.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to have such an exciting guest and an incredible brand. But before we go deeper into the interview, the most important question is, what's on your wrist today? What are you wearing?
It's the same watch for the last 3 months. So since I showed it to Waco in Geneva, I've been wearing the same Revolution Mercury 38mm watch with a convex mirror dial. It's our first sporty classic watch that we made. It's very thin, very comfortable, and I love it. So I've been wearing it since 3 months ago, which is unbelievable for me, but that's the reality.
Fantastic. No, it says a lot when you keep a watch on for that long. It says a lot about the watch. It's a fascinating piece to see. So I do have to plug the website here. To have a closer look at that piece, please check out our website for all the show notes, www.chronopassion7.com. And there you'll see all the pictures of the watches we discussed today. But Pam, what are you wearing today?
What am I wearing today? What I'm wearing today is not authorized by Waco or José. It's one of my favorite watches in my collection. It's a Tissot PRX with the green dial, the quartz version. Very simple, very easy to wear, lovely integrated bracelet, and just nice for the summer. Talking of summer, there's a heat wave here in London. Believe it or not, there's a heat wave in Barcelona too. So José and I are suffering in the UK. Andy's suffering even more in Barcelona. So if you do hear the whirring of fans in the background, please excuse that. And that's what it is. There's nothing dodgy going on. So that's what I've got on my wrist. And Andy, we haven't asked you. What have you got on your wrist?
Well, as you can imagine, nothing has changed since the previous episode, but I am rocking my Rolex 1573. It's one of the first generation Rolex Oysters, what you would call a flat bubble back. Absolutely incredible one. Again, you need to see closer in the pictures and in the metal even more so. But yeah, really, really enjoying this piece still.
Lovely, beautiful watch. Just to the listeners, check out those show notes. Because José's, well, Andy's watch is incredible, but José's mirror dial Mercury is something else. Right, so let's get into these questions. We'll get onto that watch a bit later on. But first of all, José, just tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into watches, and then how and why you started Isotope Watches. Give us a bit of background.
Okay, so the short version.
Or long version, whichever you want.
The most interesting bits, I think. So my parents gave me a Timex when I was 10 years old. It was a manual watch. It was not quartz, with an enamel dial. Back then, it was a very interesting but very simple watch. And I wore that watch every day for almost 2 years, and then the watch stopped. And I decided to open the watch to understand how the watch was working, or what was inside it, and I ruined.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you fixed it.
Unfortunately, no, I didn't. I ruined it because I opened it, everything fall apart. I think screws were missing, so it died. But it opened the window of. I was always very curious about machines, and I'm a car guy as well, so I always loved automobiles. But I studied to become a lawyer, but I hated it. And gladly I went to advertising and then to film production advertising. So I spent all my life making films, basically, and post-production. And I'm still addicted to that area. In that area, some people are lucky enough to make some money. So I've been collecting watches since I was 20-something years. So the first one I bought as soon as I had my salary when I started working in advertising was a Breitling Jupiter. It was a quartz watch with a movement from Miyota with an alarm. It was really cool. I loved it. Then I went buying watches until the moment that we had a crash in Portugal and most Europe in 2009, 2010. So my companies back then went down. I closed them. Basically, I was forced to close them because there were no customers. So that's when we moved to Belgium. And when we were settling down in Belgium, I was invited to come to the UK to work in production again, not as a company owner, but as an employee. It was quite a change, but also very interesting. And then I started making some money again. So I started collecting again. I was happy to meet very interesting people from the watch world in the UK. And I decided to restart my collection, let's say, because I had to sell most of my watches to fund our
move. Yeah.
to restart the life. Yeah, it was unbelievable, and with kids, it's even worse. When I saw that the guy wanted to sell me a Gerald Genta, a Jumping Hour for 17,000, my wife told me, "Well, you shouldn't go back to your old habits, maybe." Why don't you make your own? I thought it was very, very interesting. So I opened the company with her, with my wife. I started on weekends. I usually left on Fridays. I would spend Friday and Saturday in Geneva with an engineer and with some very interesting people in the industry, learning. So I went back and forth many, many, many times. The creation of that first one, it was the rider. So I had a concept. I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
When was this? This was 2016, is that right? Or what year did you actually start this?
This was yes, it was 2016, exactly. When I started to understand exactly the difficulties to make a new watch from scratch, it was really interesting and very painful. So I spent a fortune to develop our own jumping hour. The first watch we did, it was the rider. I met, back then he had been working with Konstantin Chaikin, the designer. So he helped me design the jumping hour. I met some amazing people in Geneva where I developed the case, and I was able to find an excellent supplier in Bienne for the movement or the jumping hour model. So we assembled them. It took 2 years to assemble the first one because not only of the costs, but because the process is really complicated to create something from scratch. So we went from 3D printing to machining the cases in a very simple way, and then perfecting them, and then finding all the components that were really necessary in terms of dial, the hands, etc. We went through the whole process, and that allowed me to really understand how to make watches. In this process, there is also a very interesting twist because this was supposed to be a one-off. I'll share some images with you guys afterwards. And when the watch was ready, between London and Geneva, I met a wonderful guy on the airplane. And he told me, "Oh, I love your watch. Well, what is that?" And I told him, "No, this is something that I did. Oh, but it looks very professional. Let me check." So he checked it and he told me, "Listen, if you make more, let me know and I'll buy 10 from you."
Your first customer on the plane.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was the beginning of everything. When I start showing online, I also have some people from Canada that wanted the watch. I also had some people in the UK, specifically from Manchester, that they wanted the watch. So I went back to my suppliers and I asked them, "Listen, I want to make 99, 100 in a total with a 00. Okay, so let's find a way to do it." So I start making it. And when almost everything was ready in terms of the case, the dial, the hands, etc., I reached the point that I had to buy the models and to buy the movements, and I contact my supplier, and he told me, "Jose, I'm so sorry, but I cannot sell you the models anymore." And I said, "Oh, don't do that, because I have 99 cases. I have everything prepared specifically for this model. It was the JJ model." "Yeah, but I can't. But because I sold my company to a company in the UK." I said, okay, so what's happening? Yeah, Christopher Ward bought
Oh,
the
really?
company.
Oh wow, small world.
So
Behind everything, are they?
no, it was amazing because it was really scary. So I had 99 cases that needed a solution. That teach me in a way to have always a plan B or a plan C as well. So it took a lot of time to find a new supplier, but I found it in La Chaux-de-Fonds. I found also new suppliers in La Chaux-de-Fonds. So I discovered a new world. So Geneva, it's a different world from the rest of Switzerland in terms of production. And it was very interesting. So that was probably the best problem to have when I was starting the company. And that taught me a lot. So we made the new models with this company, and the watches just disappeared, just like that. And I lost a fortune. I
Oh,
didn't
really?
know the costs. I didn't know that I had to spend money in packaging. I didn't know that I had to spend money shipping and insuring the watches. I didn't know all that. So in the end, we sold the watch for peanuts. If it was a mainstream brand, it would have cost 6 times, 7 times more. So it was a bad deal for me. But those people that bought the first watch came back and asking for a diver watch. So we start working on the Goutee D'Eau, which is a super compressor. Well, the design is like a super compressor, but with new technology, which is, in my opinion, better than a super compressor and safer. So we created the Goutee D'Eau, also sold out really fast. Then we created the GMT, which is still being sold out at the moment, but we are making more dials and more hands for it. Then we made the Idrium case. When I say then we made, it means that it has been in design for 2 or 3 or 4 years. So since I started
Okay.
the company, we have been making about 10 to 20 prototypes every year. So it's a constant search for perfect cases, perfect dials, perfect hands, perfect fitting on the wrist. Not only how it looks, but a lot more in terms of development, in terms of usability. And that's why sometimes it seems that we don't have a line that goes through all our models, but trust me, there is a connection between all of them. What I don't like is to make a tool watch that then become a pilot watch and then become a jumping hour and then become a diver, etc. So I think that
Yeah.
every watch has its specific usage. And that's why I love to spend years developing to perfection a chronograph case, a diver's case, an alternative diver's case, etc. So that's how we process the evolution of the company. From the Idrium, it was the big breakthrough because we created something inspired in a door sign called Will Return. So it's the door sign it's that one over there.
I saw this at the British Watchmakers
Exactly. So
fair. It'll be in the show notes, listeners. This will be in the show notes. We'll have a picture of this door sign as well. It says closed. Please call again.
exactly. So we call it the Will
And we'll
Return.
return at 10 past 10.
I bought this sign, a similar sign, 20 something years ago in New York, and I never thought I was going to have my own brand. I never thought about it. I was in another planet. But when I opened the box about 6 or 7 years ago, and I saw the Will Return, the Sinage, and I said, "Oh my gosh, the hands! They look like the hands we just designed for another watch that has not been released."
So that was like the law of attraction there, then, like it's kind of
Yeah,
in your mind.
it was
They say
exactly.
this
Yeah.
book, The Secret, you see on your mood board, and you actually made that watch.
Because if you see the hands, they are our logo. So
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
where everything came from, because this shape is also on the central motif of our rider, the jumping hour.
Okay.
And that shape comes from the kitchen clock from Maxbill, the one that has a timer on the base. That clock, it's on MoMA's design museum. And it's very interesting because that shape is like a water drop, but turned upside down. And that's why we call it lacrima, because it looks like a teardrop. It became our logo because not only is a perfect nature shape, but also as a lacrima, it has a deep meaning for the lost ones, so to our family. And from there, the Hydrium will return, which I was really afraid to release because when we released it, there were no divers with striking blues and reds, and it was quite a different world. When we released it, it sold out instantly. We were lucky enough we were showing the watch at a fair. It's a Facebook group, Divers Watches. There is an event they organize every year in London. Brad Holmes, which is a journalist and a photographer, he was there. And he took a picture, he loved it, and he posted the picture, and the week after, everything was sold out. And from there, lots of other brands start using colors and more playful approaches to divers. It was the beginning of everything.
Yeah.
Because
that's quite a journey there.
Incredible journey.
There's a lot. You use a lot of symbolism as well, don't you, in your watches?
Yes, because I like something called slow design. So we create. I enjoy is to create something that has a popular approach and it's easy to understand. The water drop shape or the teardrop shape is one of them, obviously.
So this is perfect. One of my questions was around. So I think I read somewhere it's like the egg of Columbus. So I was going to ask where that inspiration came from, because it's not just a theme within your logo, but it's also in some of the dial shapes as well, right? Like the 3D depth of the shape. So it's perfect timing running into that, just to find out a bit more about where that came from.
The egg of Columbus has a meaning behind it. The story is very interesting because he asked his audience, can you make an egg stand up? And no one was able to stand up because it's an egg, so it will play around.
Fall over.
Roll over.
Yeah, exactly. So we just smashed a little bit of the base of the shell and the egg will stand. What I want to mean with it, and I think it's a genius idea, is that once you see it, it's very easy. The problem is how to get there. And that's the most difficult bit in watchmaking these days. It's how to make something different, something affordable, using existing movements, because we, as a small company, don't have the power. We can already afford to make new models, and I will show you one example. We can already afford to change movements and to make them more usable for our needs, but we cannot afford to make a movement from scratch. And it doesn't make sense at the moment because there are so many good offers out there that it will be silly for me to try to create a new movement if I can talk with my supplier and he can do whatever I want him to do, which is amazing. It doesn't make sense for me to compete with them. I prefer to invest that money creating models and adapting the movements for our own needs. The Ego Columbus is that it's how to use existing models but show the time. And that term, I think the first time we used it was on the GMT watch because it was the first time that we were showing the second time zone and the date on a circular way. There are many other brands that have been showing the date on a circular way with holes. The first one was a guy from Germany called Michael with a watch called the Orbit. Then Swatch did that as well. Then a Swiss brand did it as well, which many people think they were the first, but they weren't. So the first one was this guy in the 90s in Germany.
Yeah.
And then we did it, but with an added difficulty, which was to create a central disk telling the second time zone. It's very difficult because we had to have a dial with 3 layers. It was not easy. So the process is when the watch is ready, give it to me again. I will rock it for 2 or 3 months, and then I will start removing things, removing, making it as simple as possible, but as complicated as possible as well. So it looks somehow striking and somehow different.
Brilliant.
That's the idea.
Making the impossible possible, huh? By the sounds
And
of it.
affordable. It's not impossible, but again, the difficulty is to be the first one to imagine. Once you see it, you can improve it. You can change the colors, you can change the decoration, you can change anything and improve it. But the point is, we got there first. There are so many people doing watches at the moment. There is 300 years of history in watchmaking. But we try to come up with things that they look very simple, but they are new, which is really cool, in my opinion.
Cool, difficult and cool. Very cool. When you do it right, yeah, it must be very rewarding, but getting that cool look as well with it. That actually leads me nicely into the next question I was going to ask. It was around the design process you have.
Yeah.
You've covered that a little bit, and you have said that you're inspired by Brutalist, Art Deco, and also one thing that I found very curious was Art Moderne as well, which is more chrome and more shiny curves and edges. And the two watches I want to talk about today, two of your new releases. One is the Revolution collaboration called the Mercury, which you're wearing. And the second one is the chronograph, the MoonShot.
Yeah.
What influences were behind those? The Mercury, I'm thinking, is the Art Moderne with the shiny chrome. Would I be right in saying that? And how did you and Waco work together to make that happen? Because it's very different from a lot of things you've done in the past.
So, this watch is very, very different from everything. So until we made the Mercury, I don't like polished watches, okay? I like them with brushed finish or a blasted finish or hammered. And when I wanted to do a polished watch, the direct connection was what is really shining, what is the metal that really brings out fluidity, what is the purpose of having a polished watch. It needs to be like a water drop, just like our logo. So if you look at the lugs, if you put them together, they are a water drop. So imagine a water drop falling in a table. We indeed broke a thermostat with Mercury, one of the old ones. So we broke it and we tested and we cut the drop in half and it separated and created small drops. It's exactly what's it on our logo. So it's the logo and then two small drops. The nerdiness about this is that when you have water on the table, the water drops, it's round on the top, but the sides, they get attached to the table. But Mercury, no, they create a perfect round bubble.
Sphere.
Yes, a sphere. That nerdy detail is also represented on the logo. So the sides of the logo, they are round. They don't touch the dial, only the center. From there, I start thinking about enamel dials. I start thinking about cloisonné dials because I wanted really to make something different. So to create a case that was really different from cushion case from Panerai, for example, which for me are one of the most beautiful cushion cases in the market, if not the most beautiful. Well, I think I prefer this one, but that's another.
Very true. Yeah, yours. This is much better,
and it's smaller as well.
Yeah.
So what happened here was we had to make one that was quite different from those existing in the market. I started looking for connections with the word Mercury, and I knew the designer, Richard Dreyfuss. So in the 1930s, he designed the Mercury train. It was a streamliner.
Yeah, it looks very liquid metal. That's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
You'd almost, you're a film guy, you know Terminator 2, right?
Yeah,
you know
the T1000, exactly.
Is what the kind of watch,
exactly.
He do Cyberdyne Systems. He'd be wearing that watch.
Absolutely. No, yes, and so from those details, for example, they had moon discs on the wheels of the train. Those moon discs ultimately became part of our dial on the chronograph, which we will talk afterwards.
Okay, so they all intertwined.
Oh, yes.
The design is all, as you mentioned that earlier.
They all have
okay. Check out the show notes. Yeah, at home, check out the show notes because you can start seeing the similarities. At first, I didn't see that at all, but now you've
started to connect the dots.
Not obvious.
Really,
they are not obvious, but they are there. It's the only way to keep the unity between what we have done and what we will do in the future. But again, each style, each version, each watch, its model has its own functionality. So this one needed a manual movement. We created a new bridge, designed a new bridge with Landeron, which is one of our main suppliers in movements. They created the new bridge, they decorated it, and they reassembled the movement with new stones. So it's like it was a new movement, but it's our exclusive, basically, because no one has these bridges.
Exclusive to Isotope.
No one has this finish, exactly. That was a lot of work. Just for the movement, it was more than a year. Instead of buying off-shelf, regulate it and fit it, no, we went through a very complicated process to get here. When we got to the fluidity bit, we also thought about making very different hands from everything else. The hands, when together, they create a shape. So when you put them together, they create a leaf. Can you see?
Okay, yeah. Wow.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so they have...
Do you have a video of this that you could send us to put in the show
notes?
Yes, because that's
I have.
Really interesting.
I'll send it.
Yes, if you could,
Absolutely.
please. Yeah, but listeners at home, check out these are going to be some really good show notes this week because you get the full experience.
No, it's so we had the god Mercury with leaves. We had the train, the Mercury. We had the liquid metal. So we have a trilogy of elements that put it all together. Yes. They all have the same language in terms of design. Above everything, they all have the same name, which is even more interesting. What we tried to do here was when I saw the design, because one of my designers, he created the 3D shape and he rendered it, and I looked at it and I said, this is brilliant. If it fits well on the wrist, it will be amazing. So we made the 3D print. It looked wonderful, scarily thin, because all our previous watches have models and they were divers with double dome crystals, which make them thick because they need to be thick. There are no miracles. When I had this watch ready in terms of design, I also had a later stage, the chronograph. I sent a message to Waco. I didn't know him before. I sent him a message on Instagram showing him the two designs, asking for a Zoom meeting. And after he saw the designs, he said, okay, let's meet. So we had a Zoom meeting. I loved talking to him. It was really insightful. He said, Jose, if you make the Mercury with a mirror dial, I will release it with you. And I said, yes, of course, let's do it. You can't say no to Waco, right? Never. So, but I did not know what I was saying, because the dial and the hands and the case back, they have the same curvature. So the case back is concave, the dial, the hands, and the crystal, it's convex. Okay.
Oh, I see.
So everything is convex. Everything follows the same curvature as the dial.
Everything fluid.
Exactly. So it's part of the fluidity of the whole watch. When I went to my suppliers, or my dial suppliers, and I asked them, listen, I need to make this, not in Hamel, I need to make this polished, like a mirror. Some told me immediately that can't be done. And some came a couple of weeks later, that can't be done. And I told my engineer, this is the 21st century, so we need to do it. Let's find a way. After a few sleepless nights, we came up with an idea, and I asked them to try what was my idea. They tried it, and 6 weeks later, we have a first prototype. And then about 6 months later, we were able to have the dials, one perfect dial, and then it took about a year to make them. We made about 300, 160 were good, 150 were assembled. So we have 10 reserved in case something goes wrong with any of the watches. This is quite interesting because before saying yes to anyone, check if it's possible to do it in an affordable way. Because if the watch is being sold for less than £2,000 plus taxes,
Oh, really?
It's incredible.
Wow, that's
Yeah, it's
very reasonable for what you're getting. Yeah.
It was so what we tried to do here was to do something affordable so people can do what we can do, not only divers, not only polished or hammered watches, but also what a sporty classic can be. It's classic, but it's still very sporty, very interesting, and that's why I love it so much in terms of design. That was a very crazy thing. So, but in connection to Streamline, we also, at the same time, we were designing the chronograph.
It has a very unique look, Jose.
It's very strange. It's very different
Yeah,
from
what
everything else.
this is
Yeah.
why a lot of your watches have a very unique look, and like this is probably the most unique looking one I've seen.
This is very crazy.
What
Yes, it's
is the what inspired this?
it's a book called the Incal. So the Incal, it's a novel, comics, and the designer is a guy called Moebius. So the guy that wrote the story, it's Alejandro Todorevsky. He's an Argentinian guy, and Moebius was a French comic designer, which it's one of my biggest inspirations ever. This watch started to being created in a very different shape 4 years ago. And when
Just I didn't explain to the listeners that this is the MoonShot Chronograph that we are looking at now, not the Mercury. And it's so unique looking. The bezel, the tachymeter, everything is the shape. Is it bead blasted or
so this is
PVD coated?
Yeah, no, it's different different approach. So this is titanium 5. It would be a very heavy watch if it was steel.
Okay.
We went completely crazy and we decided to create it in titanium grade 5, which is the hardest used in watchmaking. We created a shape that has never been done before in terms of the crystal. So it's not round, it's not square, it's between the two of them. And we got here because for 2 years we were designing our chronograph, but in a very traditional way. And what we were looking at, to make a chronograph that was going to compete with 70 designs that were released 2 years ago. They were the same: yellow, black, brown, blue, red, magenta, whatever. They all look a bit like the same. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that it's an approach that doesn't resonate with our brand. When we had our own design that was similar to many others, I said, no, stop it. Let's not do that. Let me think about it. So we went away as a coincidence, and I took the book again with me because I love to read that when I have time. I started looking at the spaceships. I started looking at the retro engineered building houses and to build the spaceships and to build the tools and to build the weapons, etc. It was clear that we had to follow that path because the idea was to find shapes that have not been done before. My designer, the other one, which is an industrial designer, he was very happy with the idea, so we started playing with shapes. After 1 year, we got to an agreement that it will be this. But the first design, it had traditional hands on the subdials. I thought, so what if we go back to the disc theme and we use the moon discs that we had on the shape of the Mercury, and instead of showing all the subdials, we cover them. So it's not wandering hands or nothing like that. It's something that has never been done before as well, which is covering the subdial. It rotates only showing what needs to be shown. So this allows us to make a very clean dial and a very profound different design from everything else. So the case is titanium grade 5. Then we found a way to ion DLC the case, which goes deeper, 0.7 microns, if I'm not wrong, which allows the treatment to last a lifetime. So the color is a bit of gray gunmetal. It's very different.
Yeah, it's like no chronograph I've seen before, which is a testament. But one question, as a smaller independent brand, working with grade 5 titanium on such a unique K-shape, I'd imagine poses some
Yeah.
challenges. Like, how hard was it to actually machine that case to get that design?
We only find one supplier that was interested in working with it. The case is not that complicated. It is difficult, obviously, because push buttons are our logo, by the way. That's where our logo is. The difficulty is to make the bracelet because all the links are tapered vertically and horizontally. So they are all different. We only have the same, the last 6 from each side, so you can adjust the size of the bracelet. But they are all different above that. And
Wow.
no, there were no one that wanted to do this because you can
I
see
can
it as
see
well.
why.
So
Yeah.
the
That's
thickness
beautiful. Yeah, that
starts,
taper.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, tapered to a very thin,
You
normal.
don't see this often either. It's normally just one size. It might taper on the thinness, but not on the thickness. Yeah.
Exactly. So and this we have also reproduced in the same way, but in a slightly way on the other model, on the Flyway, that we can talk afterwards. This one was really, really very difficult to start making because the weight that we have on the subdials, so we tried almost everything we have in the market to make it work. We had to change the subdials, so slightly change the movement to withstand the torque. When you activate the chronograph, okay, everything goes smoothly. So the main seconds are always rotating, okay? But when you activate the chronograph seconds, the hours and the minutes will start rotating very slowly, obviously. When you stop and you reset, the torque necessary to move the discs back again is really high. So to fix the discs in place, we had to change a few things. It took a lot of time to be sure that we were able to bring this to the market. So the chronograph was ready, but when I saw the hands, I said, what if? And that's why we changed even more and we got to this result.
It's brilliant. I love that you challenge the norm. It's like, no, it's not challenging. And I like that you challenge design and you try to create something truly unique and different. And you can really see it, especially with the MoonShot, with what you've done there and the Mercury. You touched on the Flyway, and I remember seeing the Flyway on your Instagram account not so long ago, and that hobnail bezel just caught my attention immediately. And I was going to ask you, first of all, how did it go, the preview at the Wind Up Watch Fair over in, it was in San Francisco, right? You was doing the preview?
Yes, so it was in San Francisco and then in Chicago. Everybody loves it. When it's so unique, so different, so strangely refined, let's say, that the acceptance is really, really high. Obviously, there are always people that don't like what we do, but this one caught the attention of everyone and it's in production now. So we started production. We are going to introduce different dials from the ones that we showed. This is 36. It's our smallest. The one that we have here is
a perfect size for me, and I'd say that's quite daring as well, though, because many brands stay large. No, I'm very, it's my style. I'm a sucker for hobnail, and 36 for me is a sweet spot. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, so
not many brands do.
this incorporates a few very traditional details, but placed in a way that this one, for example, we have the Clou de Paris, we have the crystal with a saddle or a Pringle shape, as people call it, which is really cool because you can look at the dial from every position and it doesn't distort and it almost doesn't need anti-reflective coating, which is unbelievable. And then we have this shape here that represents the wings of a bird. So flyway are the ways that because flyways are the ways that birds take when they go up to the hot airs and they travel between regions or between continents.
Is that why it's called Flyway?
That is a flyway. That is why the shape we have here. The caseback also has a concave shape, so it suits better on the wrist. We have 3 different finishes here. We have the necessary polish to give it some more added value. Then we have a brush sides to make it a little bit more low profile. And then on the case back, we have it's bead blasted and crystal sapphire, so it's more comfortable on the wrist. And the dials, we are going to play a lot with these dials. So we have many
awesome.
ideas for this to make this very exciting and very interesting. It's full of very simple details, but everything together makes it very, very exciting. And
it looks fantastic. Yeah, it's definitely going to. Is there? You probably can't say, but when should we be expecting these to hit the market, the Flyways?
I'm trying to push it before Christmas, obviously.
Okay.
But I'm not sure because the case has three components, very different. It's not a trip case like Bremont used to do them. It's different, very different, obviously, but it has three components because it's the only way that we can match the three different finish, the different shapes incorporated in the case. And it takes a lot of time to make. And the bracelet as well, because it's not an integrated bracelet, because I wanted people to be able to use their own straps. And so we made, it looks like an integrated case, but it's not.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Okay, all right.
It's very well disguised there. But it's,
Is it a quick release system that you've got? The Watch Nerd is activated?
Yes, all of them have quick release system. All the watches that we sell. We are trying to make something that Christopher Ward and other brands have now, which is a micro adjustment.
Right, yes.
It's complicated to make one, so I'm not sure if this will have it, but other future watches will have it. And then we will retrofit it in all our bracelets as well.
So it's butterfly clasp on there with a micro
Yes,
adjustment,
it's something that is useful. It's really useful. It's not expensive to make once you find a way to make it. But we don't want to use the same system as other people are using.
So there's two more watches which I wish to discuss. I think I'm going to jump to the most... Yeah, I'm going to go into the most curious, and that's the teaser you put on your Instagram today, which is great timing for this show. But teasing this UFO watch, it sparks a lot of questions. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so this is a very, very crazy jumping hour. So let's say it's not a jumping hour, it's more like a jumping dial.
Okay. Can we put this on our show notes, Jose? Sorry. Can we have pictures of this on our Yeah, okay.
Yes, I'll
check
share.
out the show notes, guys.
I don't have professional shots because this is only a prototype. And for example, the dial and the hands will be slightly different. But the functionality, it's here. So it's this. The case, it's this. The crown is also be slightly bigger because this one is almost impossible to operate. But basically what I have here, this watch is a very different approach to jumping hour because when you rotate
dial,
the hour, it jumps the full dial. Now it's 3, now it's 4, and so forth. So the inspiration for this
really
came
cool.
From
very, very cool.
Thank you. Yeah. It's very different.
Definitely.
I think there is a brand that did this before many years ago, so it's not original, but the model is our original model. So we are developing it for the last 15 months, 16 months. I lost count. It's a huge investment to come up with something that I hope people appreciate. The shape of this is like an UFO. You were right. So the inspiration is the Jupiter 2.
Okay.
The spaceship from Lost in Space, the TV series.
Okay, right.
And then it seemed like an OVNI or like an UFO, and but there are so many watches called UFO already. So I opted to baptize it with the Latin name. So it's OVNI, which means Objeto Voador Não Identificado, which means exactly the same as UFO, but in Portuguese, French, I think Spanish as well. So there are a few languages that adopted the OVNI instead of the UFO. Yeah, so we created an all like iconography, new font, so new graphic font
Very
inspired inspired on the Mandalorian series.
Oh,
Designed
really?
by,
Is that that's from the Mandalorian? Okay, I'm a big Star Wars fan. So yeah.
it's very different, this one.
Loosely.
It's very different because we couldn't afford the copyright infringements if we
Of
made
course,
something
yeah.
similar. But
You'll
it's
speak
here.
with Disney and Lucasfilm. Yeah, you don't want that.
But the point here is you don't need to have a number. Because with this solution, you can have Kermit the Frog, you can have Snoopy, you can have whatever you want, as long as the opening is on the hour position.
Awesome.
That's it. Immediately know what time is it, and that's why I think it's really interesting and cool. Yeah, but this is.
So you can have a lot of fun with this one.
We can, yes, and we have already planned
nice.
a few very cool iterations, but we will start in a very traditional way, and then we will evolve into a bigger and more madness because this shape allows it.
I love it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So much fun.
And there are a lot more things happening, but I don't have them here.
You can't give everything away.
The UFO, how much do you know how much that would retail for?
I'm aiming to bring it to the market for less than 3,000 as well. I think that everything that goes above 3,000, we have problem that we start competing with mainstream brands like Tudor, for example. Because, for example, when we go to watch events, everybody has a Tudor. Everybody. It's ridiculous, but that's the reality. So if we get to that point, we start to make things harder for us. Yeah. But we will have one watch, hopefully next year, that it will be a lot more expensive because the movement that we are going to use, it's going to be an upgrade in terms of, I wouldn't say quality, but in terms of technology. And that will make it more expensive. Not because I want, but because it needs to.
Just the nature of
cost more.
Just the demand of financial demand.
And this model, we will not limit the watches.
The UFO.
Exactly, for the jumping disc. We will not limit the production, because if I limit the production, I have to input all the development cost into 100, 200 watches. So this way, I will dissipate the cost in the future. Yeah. Oh, and one very interesting detail. So this is the 44 millimeter version, because the lugs are under the case, so it wears like a 40 millimeters. But we also have a 38 millimeter, which wears like a 35, which is really smaller than this one, which is really cool. For me, it's this one.
Okay. So you made the other one just for Andy, then, I'm thinking, because he likes...
Exactly. That's the idea.
So, will you be at Watch Pro Salon this year in London?
No, I will be in Toronto. I will be away. Yeah. Okay. So this year, I am focusing more in international events. Next year, I'm also doing lots of UK events. I will be, for example, in Manchester for the watch collectors event. I will be in Brighton for the Best of British event as well.
On 7th of September.
So we will be here, but for the Watch Pro, I can't be there. I need to be somewhere else. For the World Time UK, that one is the one that it's at the same time as the Toronto Watch Fair. So that one I'll be in Toronto. We will also be in New York in October, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, we're traveling a lot. We need to show them.
I'm just thinking for people that want to come and see, yes, we have listeners in the US. Check out New York. Yeah. And if you're in Canada, check out Toronto. Will these watches be ready to show the general public?
If not the final ones, the prototypes will be. And the prototypes are very, very final in terms of what I have to show. They are very final. So it will not be a disappointment.
Excellent.
Well, the Flyway, it's exactly how it's going to be. This is also this is the production unit already. The chronograph is the last prototype. So the only improvement we have from this one is the crown, which will be slightly different, so it's easier to maneuver. The jumping disc, or the OVNI, will be slightly different in terms of the case, a bit more round, the dial, the hand, and the crown. So, but you have the gist.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So for anyone either side of the pond, either side of the Atlantic, if you go to a watch show with Isotope exhibiting, make them your first port of call, because these watches are absolutely amazing and you will not be disappointed. So I think that's all we have time for today.
Yes,
I believe so.
Yes,
It's quite funny because Jose at the beginning was saying, I want to do a short show, I get bored. It's too long.
no, not me. I just don't want people that are listening to get bored. That's why I like to make shorter
fascinating.
ones.
It'll be 20 minutes in the edit. No, it won't. No, thank you so much, Jose. It's been a very, very interesting insight into your brand and that creative mind
Thank
of
you
yours.
so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be with you guys, and anytime, whatever you need.
An absolute pleasure. So I do the sign off from my side. So thank you once again, Jose. It's been a privilege to speak with you today.
Thank you.
For our listeners, check out the Isotope website, and also to see all of these incredible inventions and designs, go over to our show notes, which is on www.chronopassion7.com. So, as always, that is goodbye from me for this week. So I will say adios and hasta luego from Barcelona.
And it's goodbye from Jose as he telephones James Cameron to get the Mercury in the next Terminator movie. From London, it is... You want to say goodbye, Jose?
Yes,
say goodbye.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much. If you are listening to the end, it's very, very, very good. No, thank you so much for everything. And if you need something, just email at info@isotopewatches.com, and it's usually me answering every email. So just let me know. It will be a pleasure to talk.
Excellent. Do that, people. Like I say, you won't be disappointed. So from London, it's Toodle Pip and laters, and we'll see you and you'll hear us in the next one.